from the heart, stories honest and true, the one, the only, the human canvas, you. Hello and welcome to The Human Canvas, the podcast where we explore our unique lived experiences, exploring the lives of people from all walks, diving into their unique journeys, their challenges, their passions, and the moments that have shaped who they are today. I'm your host, Nicholas Graham Hall, and today I'm honored to welcome to the podcast sculptor Frank Young. I got to know Frank through the local Quaker meeting here in Bloomington, Indiana. Welcome, Frank.
Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Nicholas.
Absolutely. It's great to see you. And everybody that knows, we do this old school. This is just ultimately it's going to be audio only, Frank. So I'm not. So if we were doing video, people would see your artwork behind you, and they would see my artwork behind me, and so they would know that we're both passionate about art.
Yes.
And frankly, if we were on video, I would show them the piece that I have from your collection, from your work. And that's the portrait of your father.
Yes.
And it's just, I love that piece. I love the color. I love the energy.
Thank you.
Love everything about it. So I want you to know that will remain a special and treasured
Thank you.
piece of mine for my lifetime anyway. So Frank is, as we were talking briefly before we hit the record button, you've been fortunate to have a long and winding journey in your life that, correct me if I'm wrong, started in Bloomington, Indiana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Took you to many other places, but brought you back to Bloomington, Indiana as well.
Yeah. Many people leave Bloomington and many people come back.
What are they referred to as? There's a name. I think they call them bloomerangs.
Bloomerangs, that's right.
Yeah.
I guess I'm a bloomerang.
Yeah. I share with people that I went to college here. And then, living here now, they call me a bloomerang. And I said, I don't know if it counts if you just hang out on campus. Yes. I don't know if you're, I don't know if you really count, but they like to count it as that. So sure. We'll let them count it.
I like that. I like that term.
Yeah, absolutely. Frank, did you, you are a lifelong artist. Did you study, was your undergraduate in art?
Yeah. Yes, my undergraduate was in art here at Indiana University.
Okay.
I started, I wanted to be a painter initially, but found that there's so many people that are so much better than me at painting that I might try to do something else. So I was using painting in constructing environments. And John Darrieau, the head of the sculpture department, came by and saw my work, and we talked, and he invited me to come into the BFA program in sculpture rather than in painting, which I did. And that was a really wonderful, fabulous experience with a number of people who were just really, really great artists. And both John Darrieau and Donald Sandstrom, who was the other professor in art, really were very kind to me and very helpful to me and encouraging me a lot. The thing I started out, as I said, was sort of building these environments and thinking about movement and dance, and started thinking about making locational objects for choreography. And so the first piece I did was a set of hexagons that were to be placed in a field that dancers were to regard and move around. I got hooked on the carving aspect of it, though.
Oh,
because it was just very, very rewarding. And I think I told you it was a period of time. I was an adolescent, and I was struggling a good bit with what reality was. And it was a time when there was a lot of drug use. And I fell in with everyone else and enjoyed that greatly. But I found it was kind of disorienting and made me feel like, well, what is real? What's really going on in this world? And Don Sandstrom got me to make my tools for stone carving in the foundry there, which I did. And then the moment that point came to the stone and I hit it with a hammer and the chip flew across the field, suddenly, this is it. This is reality. There's no getting around it. There's
Wow.
no abstract issue here at all. It's a question of physics, materiality, and mental action. And so that really hooked me right from the very beginning. And
You know what I hear in that, Frank, also when you were sharing earlier about that you started in painting,
mhm,
and you also talked about how you were comparing yourself to others,
yeah,
which is such a I I can appreciate what a challenge it is. I know I'm a later in life creator of art, and I know that if when I spend time comparing my work to another,
mhm,
that just never goes anywhere.
yes,
It's either like, man, mine's better than that, or
absolutely right.
oh my geez,
But
right?
bear in mind, this was not my personal comparison. My absolutely wonderful professors were guiding me in that direction as well.
Oh, okay.
They knew I loved doing it, but they
Yeah.
could see, my friend Andy Mahler was a master draftsman, and I would try to draw the figure, and he would draw the figure that looked like Michelangelo's drawing, and mine would look fairly abstract. So
A different interpretation, I would say, but that's okay.
that's you could put it down to different interpretation,
But
but
nonetheless, I mean, that had whatever, that feedback had in
yeah,
but then when you're sharing about the experience
yeah,
of the carving,
hmm
of that, none of that had anything to do with anybody else's
no, it didn't.
work,
No, it
right?
didn't. Yeah,
Sounds like you were like completely in the moment.
that's
And
what
being in the moment is what mattered.
stone carving requires that of you. There's no time to contemplate, or well, there's time to contemplate, of course, but to it's a total engagement, and it's a total physical engagement. Stone carving is really a dance because you have to engage your entire self in the process if you're carving at any scale. And so it's a mental, visual, physical relationship with this object that you're attempting to shape to something that will carry meaning. And that's
So you have this, I mean, this visceral
uh-huh.
moment that
Yeah.
is obviously a core memory.
Yeah.
Then what?
Well, then I went on. I started carving stone regularly and kept getting more encouragement for that. And I started.
Where were you where were you physically? Were you here in
I was
Bloomington?
physically here in Bloomington,
Okay.
working at the sculpture department, which is where the School of Education is now on campus. That's where our studios were, and we had a foundry, and we had compressors and tools, and I was able to really dig in and start making art with stone, and got really good feedback on that. And as I said, I started winning awards and getting money for my work, and that's sort of very encouraging to me. So I sort of committed myself to a career in sculpture. And John Paul Darrieau, my professor at the time, was very encouraging to me and encouraged me to think about graduate school, which I did. And he had just been to the American Association of, I think it's, I'm trying to remember what the American Association of Artists is. I think it's anyway, that's the American Association of Art and Arts Teachers. And he had met a professor there, Jan Zak, who was a Czechoslovakian immigrant, who was the head of the sculpture department at the University of Oregon. And JP thought that this would be a good match for me, that this would be a person who could really inspire me and I could, work well with him. And so I was accepted to the University of Oregon and went there and found that to be an absolutely beautiful place, a gorgeous place. I found it to be just a miraculous environment to be working in.
Yeah. I've lived on the West Coast, so I can appreciate there's beauty everywhere, and it's
Yeah.
Pacific Northwest is
Well, my
really
studio backed up against the wolf research station. So when I was working there at night, the wolves would come over just beyond the fence outside my studio and sit there and watch me.
Mm,
And I could go out the door, and 100 yards down the way was the Willamette River. And the bridge over the Willamette River, I could go down there and watch the steelhead trout make their way up the river. It was really, magical and inspiring there.
wow.
The thing about Jan was that he was very expansive in his thinking. Um, he had been he actually had a very fortunate life in that he was the cultural attaché to the Czechoslovakian embassy in Argentina when Hitler took over the Sudetenland and so on. And so he stayed there. He was exiled. He did not want to go back, and struggled for years with that. Came to the United States sometime later, and got here just before the communists took over in 1948, 49, I think it was. But he was a kind man. He was, a little bit of a fanatic, a little bit of an anti-communist in the extreme, which I could totally understand, given what had happened to his country. But he encouraged me to think broadly about my art, and he was interested in art in public places. And just thinking about art in public places and what does that mean, and what is the purpose and intention of that. And he encouraged me to look into, at the time, the University of Oregon's program is more like I use this now, where art, architecture, art education, art history, we're all in one department, arts, architecture and allied arts. So I then began taking some classes in planning, and got accepted to the program to do a second master's degree. Got my MFA at University of Oregon, and then went on for a second master's in urban planning, which was a really inspiring experience. It was, I look at my choices and think, what are the choices I was making? So the idea that I had in relationship to art in public places was that we should really regard public places as art. I went back to Marcel Duchamp's perspective on what is reality, and his statement was there are two conditions of existence. One is nature, and the other is art. Well, if that's the case, then our environments that we build should reflect an aesthetic as art does. If it's art, it should be good art, not just manipulated by human beings. So I then said about how would one go about doing that, and got into discussions in planning about neighborhood development and community development and local control of planning and urban aesthetic decisions, and was really very interested in that. And the focus of my work was on cooperative housing, because that was the way that people could actually take over and control their own environment and make the aesthetic decisions that were good for them, their children, their families, their environment. And I went to work on that, and we were working on creating a cooperative housing project in one of the poorer neighborhoods of Eugene. And it was going along very well, and we had secured financing. And so I was looking forward to a career in this field. And then in November of 1980, my heart was broken when the American people chose an actor to be the president rather than the engineer to be the president. And the first thing that Ronald Reagan did was to defund the National Consumer Cooperative Bank, which was a primary funding vehicle for cooperative housing. And with that gone, things sort of went south in terms of my thinking, I've got a great career here. I'm going to be able to help people make these cooperatives happen. And no, that's not what Ronald Reagan wanted. So I had to go along with his plan to do whatever you had to do. Anyway, it made me change my career orientation, became much more involved in the financing and the development of housing and, with multifamily housing, because elderly housing was still funded and some Section 8 housing was still funded. And so I went on from there. And then it just evolved into a career in real estate because that's what was happening, and helping people think about how would you examine and finance a cooperative housing project or under a subsidized housing project. And I sold a couple of those and made a living just sneaking by on that. But
was your art sort of on the side or on the back burner during this?
It was time? I'd come home from work and make art. So that's it was sort of like I kept on, making art. I wasn't doing much stone carving, a little bit, but not much stone carving. I was mostly doing paintings and drawings and construction things. But that I don't have any interest in giving that up because it's one of the main ways that I express what's in me. Yeah. And so that went on. I was married. I married a woman that I met at Swarthmore College. She was Sidwell Friends School girl, and so we hit it off and got along very well for a number of years. We had 2 children. We still have 2 children. They're still kicking around. But she got more and more involved in her work in computer science, and I got more and worked in finances, and we just sort of drifted apart, I think, and decided that we better be getting on with our lives. And so my parents were living in Bloomington. They're getting older, and I had a friend here. Wouldn't call her yet a girlfriend, but she had been a very close friend, and we loved each other. And her name's Sally Jones. She's still my wife now. And so I wrote Sally, and she wrote me back, and we got together. And she had a 14-year-old daughter, my daughter Jessica, and didn't want to move her to California in the middle of her 8th grade. So I moved to Bloomington, and I was fortunate in moving to Bloomington at a good time. I knew I had the stone here, so I started making sculptures in Sal's driveway, and Suzanne Halverson was really kind to me and gave me a show at the Arts Center in the Union Building, and so I got to meet a lot of people in the arts at that time and renew relationships with my old professors, Bill Itter and Robert Barnes, and some other folks there. And then,
what year are we? In
1990.
The Union.
1990.
I missed your. I was here in 1990, so I missed your exhibit.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But people understand. I was when people see me, they have a hard time believing. But I was a Kelly graduate, School of Accounting. So I spent most of my time either at the fraternity house, the business school, or at the Hyper, playing pickup basketball. So we have, for those of you, if you get a chance to visit Bloomington, we have this beautiful, really quite, I think, I've gone to a handful of art museums at universities.
Yeah.
I think ours is really quite something here.
It is really quite something.
Right. Yeah. The Eskenazi. I mean, the building itself, if you appreciate architecture, and the collection as well. I have, but I'm embarrassed to say, but I mean, I understand I was an 18-year-old kid and I just wanted to play hoops. So I hadn't expanded yet to right across the walkway there at the art museum. But when you came, so I think it's for those, and for those that don't know about this particular area of the country, we have, I don't know if it's like the world's largest reserve of limestone, but we got a lot.
We have a lot. We have a large supply of limestone. And the nature of the Indiana limestone is that it is very consistent in its construction and in its structure. Other limestones have a variation, or they're very hard in their structure, like Wisconsin, Minnesota limestone is very nice, but it's really hard. The Texas limestone is soft but it's yellow and has more incrustations than our Indian limestone does. So Indian limestone has this quality of being very easy to get along with in the weather. It's very consistent in its structure, so there's not many surprises. Usually there are some, but not many surprises, so that stone can be cut to specifications that other stones would have more trouble doing. And so, of course, most people may know that that's the Empire State Building is Indian limestone, that they probably do not know that 70% of all the major buildings in North America have a limestone component to them. And so the Chrysler Building, the Pentagon, the IRS building are all Indian limestone. And it's
okay, I got a quick question. What about seems like Frank Lloyd Wright used a fair bit of limestone.
He probably did. It was his mentor was the architect that really was the architect for Chicago.
Okay. Chicago based, so maybe
we'll remember him in a while. But the Chicago fire was a real motivator for the Indiana limestone industry, because Chicago realized we can't keep building things out of wood and have this kind of catastrophe happen again. So they began building with stone, and Indiana limestone was the most available, most effective stone. And at that time, they actually hauled the stone on the railroad from Bloomington and Bedford up to Chicago, where they had set up shops there to cut in stone. Wow. Since then, of course, we've come back. It's all cut and formed in Bloomington and then shipped as cut stone. But back then, they did it that way. But it really gave a boost to the limestone industry, and the industry really took off around that time, early 20th century.
I was going to backtrack for a second. Did your sculpture work, was it primarily then because you were here in Bloomington with limestone? Was it primarily, were you working with limestone when you were here? And then did your practice shift when you went out west?
Well, yes, it did shift when I went out west, because the carving stone there, the stone that was most available, is basalt. Now, the Egyptians did a really good job in carving basalt, but they had slave labor to do it. And I didn't have any slave labor to work with me on this, so I very quickly got discouraged about working in basalt. I had a colleague there, a friend there, who went on to carve a lot of basalt stone, but he was a fanatic, and he loved doing it. But what I found was I really liked working with wood as well, so I got into doing good many wood constructions and pieces that included wood as well as stone, and some metal pieces as well. Kind of doing a lot of welding and putting pieces together that way. But then I got distracted from that by being drawn into the urban planning process. And
so coming back to Bloomington was coming back like physically, your incarnation, but also coming back to the sculpture, the original, the first chisel, that first interaction, coming back to limestone. Yeah.
It was funny, because that wasn't my focus. My focus was on developing my relationship with Sally. But as soon as I got back, I started looking around. Everything's limestone around here. I don't know what to do with that. And so I took over her garage, and she never complained about it, but I started making sculptures there, and went on doing that for a couple of years. The thing that happened soon after I returned to Bloomington, though, was that I was hired as the executive director for the Bloomington Area Arts Council
there was just a little glitch, and it almost sounded like fired, but I think you were hired.
I was hired.
You were hired, yes.
I was never fired. I resigned, but I never got fired. But I was hired to guide the mission of restoring the old City Hall at 4th and Walnut Street to the John Waldron Arts Center. And it was kind of in some ways, it was kind of like coming together of my life history, where I had this history in real estate development and finance, I had this history in art and community development, and the two things sort of went hand in glove. And I felt like it was kind of a match made in heaven. And so I went to work on raising money and raising artists and raising enthusiasm for this. And I think we did a really, really good job with it.
Well, for those, a little public service announcement for those that get a chance to visit. You get a chance to visit Bloomington, the John Waldron Arts Center, as you mentioned. It's at 4th and Walnut.
Mhm.
They routinely will have artists exhibiting in spaces. They also have a couple of theaters. So there's often shows happening there as well. I've been able to have a few of my pieces in some exhibits. Actually, there's a whole holiday market happening right now. So I've got some of my pocket squares in there as well. So
Good for you. Yeah.
it's a beautiful, I mean, it's a beautiful building. It's a beautiful space. It has a lot of, as we mentioned, a lot of multiple uses here.
Constellation, which is a theater group, or actually the managers of the facility now, and they've done a wonderful job with the decoration of it. They could do things that we couldn't do because we were bound by historic preservation not to do modifications, and they have turned it into a palace, which is very, very lovely. I really appreciate it every time I go. But that's and the intention was to provide space for theater, for art education. I'm not sure how many classes are doing currently. We had a lot of classes there in painting, drawing, ceramics, sculpture, carving, stone, and from that experience of carving the stone, two things. One thing that happened was that the person we found to teach the stone carving class was Amy Breyer. And Amy Breyer came to me one day in my office and said, Frank, I've been thinking about what we're doing here in Bloomington. And, there is this symposium that happens at Marble, Colorado every year. And I knew about that, of course, because it was, a pretty famous operation. And she asked the question, well, why can't we have a limestone symposium like that here in Bloomington? And my response was, well, why not? And so,
There you go.
so we set to work on it.
You need a second person to say why not.
Set up, got together with the board of directors and told them what we planned to do, and they were enthusiastic about it and got behind it, and started happening in 1996. This will be our 30th anniversary of the Limestone Symposium. We've had people from all over the world come to learn to carve stone, to share their experience, to teach and to learn and to share. And it continues to be kind of a central value in my life. I feel like it's something that has, made a difference for a lot of people. And another part of it that happened was at the Waldron, we were trying to work with kids, work with youth, and we had an alliance with the Harmony School Rhinos All Ages Club just across the street. And I applied for, and we got a grant from the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute for prevention of youth problems with the law. And so we went to work with counselors and probation officers around the county city and got them to refer kids that were in trouble either with school or with the law to the John Waldron Arts Center after school. And they would come to the John Waldron Arts Center after school and make art. They taught to make art, showing how to make art. And the Rhinos All Ages Club across the street got more of the slightly older kids who had been picked up for graffiti around the town. And Bender Lumber Company donated 20 4x8 sheets of plywood to us. And we set the kids to work putting their graffiti on these sheets of plywood. Well, it was kind of a miraculous thing, because here you got these rowdy, sultry, unpleasant little kids who are so mad at the world coming around, and you say, hey, you like to mess things up? Well, here, mess this up. Show us what you can do. And so they did, and they would make these kind of fabulous graffiti works, and then we installed them at People's Park. And that was really pleasing to them. And I found that, teaching kids art is really valuable beyond what anybody is thinking about. We're not trying to make them into artists. We're trying
Right.
to get them to feel that they are worthy of respect and that they are valued. And that is so important for kids, especially kids that are already getting in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, at the same time, this is happening in parallel, kind of the counselor at Binford Middle School, Clarence Langford, was in charge of taking care of the kids that were acting up in at Binford. And so he thought, well, and he had been into stone carving. So he thought, rather than make these kids write 100 times, I won't do it again, or whatever punishment they might inflict, let's divert them into something that would let them be free. So he
Mm.
set up a stone carving studio in the basement of Binford School. And these kids that had been acting out were then, instead of having their time out in the office looking at a blank wall, were sent downstairs and set to work on carving. And he got them to carve things like love or happiness or imagine. And these things became Christmas gifts for their parents.
Yeah.
And suddenly these kids were where they felt like, I'm just nobody, nobody cares about me, nobody's interested in me. It's feeling like, wow, I am somebody.
Mm.
And so we picked this up as part of the Limestone Symposium pretty early on, and got Clarence to come out and teach the classes initially, and I was happy to help him. And it's been one of the more inspiring things about the symposium in general, is we've been doing this for a long time. We've had these kids come through and do fabulous things. They're just so free and creative and inventive in what they do, and they just get so deeply into it, just absolutely love it. And then, of course, their parents come back, they're stunned that their kid could do such a thing, and so we encourage them to go ahead and do it at home. We have a lot of return students that come back. Some have come back for several years, some have graduated, are now in the adult carving programs, and so that feels good to have that happening. So soon after I got the symposium set up and got this kids carving program going, out of the blue, Tony Karasotis calls me up and says, Frank, you've done such a good job with the Waldron Arts Center. We'd like to give you the Indiana Theater to fix up too. I said, what? I said, okay. And so I took this to the board of directors. Well, it wasn't an immediate thing. My feeling was, wow, let's go. The board of directors was a little bit more hesitant because they started realizing how much it was going to take to do this, and they were accurate in many ways. I think it was right to be cautious and reasonable and systematic in how we approached it. But I think we did a really very good job on that side of things. Um, the We went around and visited other theater projects. Anderson has a very nice theater that they had restored, and it's a beautiful place. And so we got this inspiration. So the I, I'm struggling a little bit to remember the names of both the architects. Christine Matthew was one of the architects, and she had a partner from Indianapolis whose name I'm forgetting. I apologize for that. But they were really, really good with working with the board. And so we had this, and you can imagine having a committee of 20 people from various backgrounds,
Yeah.
various artists and weavers and painters, deciding on what color should the interior of the Buskirk Chumley Theater be. And that was like a security council meeting. It was just really, but we worked it out, and Christine did a wonderful job in guiding us through the process of making decisions about what would work well, what would be good, what would be beautiful. And I think we're very proud of the project today. We did run into some financial difficulties along the way. It was a bigger project. It should have been a city project in the first place, but we weren't quite able to persuade them to do that until we got to the place where it looked so good, but it just needed a push over the edge. And so the city did come in and start working it as a community theater. And I really appreciate that they didn't just take it over as a city functionary place, but kept it engaged in the arts in Bloomington and kept it as a presentation space for artists and art. I think it's something we should all be very proud of.
Yeah, it's a special place indeed.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for a real estate project to come in under budget.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. Let me know if I can help.
Yeah, I think we'll all be waiting.
Yeah.
For the time.
So we got that. I think we opened it in 1999, 98, something like that. And it's been going ever since. I know you want to talk to me about my art, but this is something that happened in terms of doing my art and getting back into my art as a more full-time thing, was that as the director of these projects, one of my primary functions was fundraising. So I was pretty good at it. I raised millions of dollars. But one of the things that I started noticing is I walked down the street in Bloomington going to lunch, that friends that I knew would cross to the other side of the street when they saw me coming. And I was
Did they see your hand out?
What? Yeah, they were thinking, here comes Frank. He's going to ask for more money. I don't want to have to make excuses, so I just avoided it. And so it dawned on me, well, maybe this is maybe this has run its course. I've done what I could. I think things are in good shape overall. And so I told the board I'd been a faithful servant for a decade now, and I'm thinking I need to move on. And so I started thinking about what to do. That I was hired by Work One, Indiana Labor Workforce Development, to manage the transition of the GE plant here in Bloomington. It was moving, I think, to Mexico. And so several hundred of our people here were losing their jobs. And so I was put in charge of being the liaison between the union and the management. And a large part of that in terms of labor development was to get people to engage in opportunities to increase their abilities, to get them more education, get them more certifications, and get them better jobs as they lost their job at GE. And in the process of doing this, I found that there were two jobs in Indiana that were in particularly high demand, that were well paid. One was long distance truck driving. Well, I thought about that and thought, I don't like to drive a car. I don't want to drive a truck. I tried double clutching before and I didn't like it. But the other one was nursing. And I had always thought about nursing because I just really like helping people.
Yeah.
And so I happened to mention this to my wife. My wife was the director of returning students at the time. So she was helping people who were coming back to school, who were finishing off their degree or coming back for the first time, to get into programs that would serve them well. And so this was kind of a mistake. Am I mentioning this to Sally? Because then the next morning I was sitting across the desk from the dean of the School of Nursing. Yeah.
Wow. Your wife moves quickly.
Yes, she did. She didn't waste any time. She called Joyce and said, Frank's interested in nursing.
Take a little hint. There you go.
And
she was listening. She was listening. She was listening.
Yes. Yep. And so Joyce informed me about the accelerated program they had for people who already had a prior degree. And so I signed into that, and it was really a very good experience for me. I got to go back and redo my physiology, which was wonderful, and sociology and psychology, and then going on into the nursing program. So that was a big transition. And of course, I didn't want to give.
So how old were you? How old were you at the time?
I must have been 60, maybe.
Wow.
No, I was younger than that. I was like, I was 53. I know what age I was.
Yeah.
I was 53 when I completed my RN, passed the NCLEX, and became a nurse. And it was, I was still coming between Bloomington and back. I still had my studio at my farm in Spencer, and could carve there on weekends and so on. But most of my time was then dedicated to my work as a nurse. It was, I was working, well, I guess 3 12-hour shifts initially. And I was at Community Hospital in Indianapolis. community hospital was very good to me. They paid for my nursing education completely and then hired me to be in their cardiac critical care unit. And I worked there for 8 years or so. And I continued with school and completed my nurse practitioner, my MSN, in 2008, and became a nurse practitioner then. And
You have a lot of degrees.
yes, but I'm still the black sheep of the family because I'm the only member of my family that doesn't have a PhD. So that's the
There
way
you
it goes. Sorry, guys. I have too many eclectic interests that
Yeah, NPA is that right? Nurse
MP, nurse
NP.
practitioner.
Yeah, that's yeah, that would be a very practical advanced degree.
Yes,
That's
it
like
is.
that you can absolutely do something. You can absolutely do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did. I continued in cardiac critical care for quite a while. I was in charge of responsible for programs for people with heart failure, congestive heart failure, and my colleague was with diabetes. We were doing direct interventions with people because the problem with those groups of people is they have terrible histories of what we call recidivism, meaning they're coming back to the hospital. They come in crisis, they're treated, they're restored, they go back out 2 weeks later, they're back again in crisis. How do we prevent that from happening? So that was what we were working on, and setting up programs to do house calls on them, to call them on a regular basis, make sure they're taking their medicine. If there are any symptoms, tell us about them, and we want to intercede before you have to come back to the hospital. And hospital.
I'm curious if your education as an artist,
Mhm.
how that impacted your, if at all, your practice as a nurse.
Well, that's kind of a good question. I do think of nursing as an art, and it's something that is. I think the part of the nature of art is the relationship between an object, an artist, and an audience. And medicine is very much kind of the same way. Your audience, of course, is the patient and their families.
Yeah.
The issue is the disease process or the health process.
Yeah.
And then the role of the provider is to determine what is this, or what's the best strategy for dealing with it? How do we take care of it? So it's in a lot of ways, it's the same pattern of work that I'm doing. It requires, of course, more sensitivity because you got these people that have feelings and their families are worried and they're scared, and have to be able to comfort them and make them aware that there is hope, or there is the ultimate reality that we're all mortal, that we're going to pass on.
Yeah.
And we want that to happen with dignity, without pain, with kindness and love surrounding them. And that was, something that I found very rewarding. I think it's sort of strange to say that being at the bedside of people as they passed away was, sort of one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. And then turning immediately to having to comfort the family who were heartbroken was really, it's demanding, it's exhausting, but it's so rewarding in terms of, why am I here?
Yeah.
Well, yes, at least I made a difference for this person. And
So I'm hearing a real parallel between that experience and the experience that you've had sharing your limestone carving.
Yeah, it is like
with those young people. I mean, different medium, but similar.
It's so cool, Nicholas. You've got to come out this June and see the kids at work and see how they go about it, because it's beautiful, it's just so inspiring. And I'll send you some pictures of the kids at work when I get a chance to get back to my phone. But there is that connection, I think, that and you've got me thinking now that it's all the same process that we're dealing with. It's all the same process of facing reality, understanding what it is, and looking at how we can make it better, are how can we make it meaningful? How can we make it comforting and enlightening for us? And I think those goals are pretty much in conjunction. And I think that's what you're trying to do with your art is to communicate that state of peace.
To think that it's just that moment
Mm-hmm.
when everything just came together for you with
Mm-hmm.
the first was the first chisel, I guess, the first, just the first interaction with
Mm-hmm.
the material, and all of a sudden
Clicked.
everything clicked.
Yeah.
And I know what, I can appreciate what it feels like to feel lost, to feel perhaps without purpose, or,
Yeah.
the why, the why am I here? And
Exactly.
it's one of those things. It's
Pourquoi je suis en vie?
yeah, and it can be something that we think that we can go find, versus I would say we have to be open to it, to the arrival.
Right.
We just have to be we have to
Yeah.
be present and aware,
Mm-hmm.
and be receptive to,
Yeah.
versus thinking that you're going to go, because then you get into the strategy of life, and how am I going to win at this game, and how's it all going to work out, and how am I going to look good, and just all the, and you're just a half a smidge off of, and that's what it takes from being present to being completely in your head.
I think at that point that you're describing, you just simply have to release yourself, let it go, and focus your perception on what it is that's coming. What is this? What is this epiphany that is occurring? And that's something that comes out of the blue without intention and catches us and turns us around and maybe sends us off in another direction. So that's
Frank, what's your practice? Would you say that you have a practice today? Are you primarily carving,
I'm
sculpture?
primarily. Actually, at the moment, I'm planning a show in June, this coming June, at the Eiffel Building on 4th Street.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm working a lot on getting things organized to show, and that's where a lot of my work is going. I've sort of hit a chilly point here with the carving. I was carving up until last month, and it's not much fun sitting out in the cold and the snow with your hands trying to manipulate the stone. So I've been inside doing more framing of paintings and working things up to be ready for the show. So that's good.
You gonna be in the big room?
Oh yeah, in the big room. Yeah.
For those of you that don't know,
small room.
again, for those of you that don't know, the Eiffel Building, I think it was originally a garage, right? Like a repair garage. So it has, but it's on. What is it on? It's on 4th as well, right?
4th Street, corner of 4th and Rogers, right next to the Rainbow Cafes in the same building.
And every month, they feature at least one, maybe two artists that have an opportunity. I've had the good fortune of exhibiting there a couple of times as well. And there's also artists. There's there's some spaces there that artists rent. And so there's creativity happening at the Eiffel Building all the time. So it's a cool space.
Yeah, Cynthia Brubaker, who's there, has really been the inspiration for all of that. She's really got this thing up and going.
Yeah. And so you're celebrating the 30th anniversary this year of the symposium.
Symposium, yes.
That takes place in Spencer. Is that right? No.
Oh, it takes place in
Ellettsville, sorry.
Yeah.
Not all the way out to Spencer.
It's at the Bybee Mill on Matthews Drive. Used to be the Matthews Mill, so it's Matthews Drive. But
and if people, I assume if they look up, today, if they just probably put in Limestone Symposium,
they may, or
Indiana, yeah.
It's a puzzle in some ways. How do people find us? But they do seem to find us, and we are trying to get the word out as best we can to everybody that It's an open environment. People are welcome from whatever the level of skill they have and what they want to learn. Find out what that is, and put them in the places that's going to work for them. We have
Right.
hand carving. We have major sculptural carving, large pieces. We have figurative carving. We have lettering, which is taught by a fabulous master letterer, Janie Weston from Minneapolis. And then we have the children's classes, which are always very much fun. And so we have hand carving and then tool working and the major pieces of stone moving around business. So this is an opportunity to learn a lot about different ways of dealing with stone, different things to do.
Sounds beautiful. Frank, I always I like to wrap up my conversations by asking my guest. So is there anything that we didn't get a chance to talk about, which could be anything?
Well,
Yeah, anything that I didn't ask I didn't ask the right question to elicit the topic or the conversation, but I just want to give you a chance to share anything that you didn't get a chance to share.
I've had fun rambling around here. I feel like I've rambled a little bit more maybe than you had in mind that I was going to do.
No, not at all.
But that's the problem with having had an eclectic life that took me everywhere. But I come back to the art because it is a reflection. And it's something that is enduring for me and something that I really want to share. And it's one of the reasons I'm looking forward to doing the show in June to show a lot of my work so that I can share it with people. And if people want it, they can have it. So we'll work on that.
Frank, when do you celebrate your birthday next?
March 5th.
March 5th. And how
102.
Not yet.
Not yet.
How old will you be on March 5th?
I think 78.
Yeah.
I think I'm 78 now.
Yeah.
And the thing about this year is also it's the 200th anniversary of the limestone industry. This year is. It is also the 60th anniversary of my high school class of 1966. And so we're starting to work on what we're going to do with that. I was just talking to Angelo Pizzo yesterday, trying to convince him, and he's agreeable to show his movies during this time and have some fun with that. And
well, part of the reason why I asked is because I know you and I see you getting around, and I think people can hear your energy, your enthusiasm, you're just being engaged in life, and I think I also believe art. Is something where it's like you get the opportunity to express your next feeling.
Yeah.
Right?
I think is wonderful about it is, as I was saying before, like carving, it's integrative. It requires all your senses to be focused. It requires every aspect of your mind and spirit to be focused. It requires your awareness, mindfulness of who you are, where you are, and what you're in relationship with as part of it. And I think that's a very wonderful thing about art. And I get to be kind of messianic about it because I'd like for all these people out there running around shooting their guns and beating their wives to make some art instead. They could beat on that limestone block and it wouldn't hurt anybody. This reminds me of a funny story. One of our early participants in the Limestone Symposium, and I'm skipping his name at the moment, it'll maybe come back to me. He was the head of anesthesiology for Community Hospital. And he came every year. Scott Vore was his name. And he was a wonderful guy and kept coming back. And I asked Scott, well, Scott, what is it that you like so much about the stone carving that you're willing to take time off from your anesthesiology practice? He says, well, Frank, the thing that I really like about this is that if I make a mistake, nobody dies. Right on.
Yeah.
As an anesthesiologist, he makes a mistake. They can't do that. But there you can let go.
No mistakes in art. It's just
there are no mistakes in art. That's right.
No.
And so often the mistake is the doorway to a new vision.
Yeah.
I think of it that way.
Absolutely. Well, Frank, thank you for taking the time. It was
You're more than welcome. I
yeah,
enjoyed talking with you. I feel like I didn't spend as much time talking about my art and my philosophy of art and my focus in my art as much as maybe we could have. But if you like, I'll be glad to talk to you about that another time.
yeah, absolutely. And for those that are listening, June of 2026, if you hear this before June of
Mhm.
2026, that's when Frank will be exhibiting at the Eiffel here in Bloomington, as well as the 30th anniversary of the Limestone Symposium.
Symposium. Mhm.
30th is going to take place in June
Mhm.
2026 as well.
Yes,
So,
it's
Frank,
Limestone Month.
yeah, it's Limestone Month. Frank, thank you. It's a real
Oh, you're
pleasure.
welcome. Thank you so much.
Stories from the heart, stories honest and true, the one